you everyone for coming. Excited for this class. Okay, and I'm Monica, and everyone but Jamie knows me. And I was just telling her that I've been doing this form of Birthchart analysis for 12 years now. And teaching this class, I don't even know how many times it's been, at least 4 or 5 times that I've taught this one. Just every couple of years I tend to run a course. And started doing it as a weekend seminar 2 years ago. Anyway, so we're just going to kind of start out talking about self-awareness and why is it helpful to study different personality assessments or to understand ourselves. Anyway, you guys have any thoughts?
So we can know who we are and what we like, and not change and mold, so we have a solid foundation of who we are.
Any other thoughts?
For me, before I learned about another system, which was temperament, I kind of grew up thinking everyone started from a really similar place and kind of felt judgmental of other people for not acting the way that I did or feeling the way I did about things. And I think this kind of thing helps see how people can be different and coming from a completely different place from yourself, and appreciating that more. Yes.
I think that's more common than we think, for people to not really realize that there are really different personalities. I had a good friend once who I brought up even just the color code thing too, and he's like, there's different personalities?
Yeah.
Like he just kind of grew up thinking everybody just kind of comes from that same place. So my thoughts on this is just, how can you take care of your own needs and fulfill yourself if you don't really understand what those needs are and what's the nature of your personality. And when you understand yourself, then you actually have freedom to act consciously. And how well you understand yourself affects how you relate to other people and allows you to be patient with other people and with all of our differences. So we'll talk more about the acting consciously later, but with that, when you don't understand what's motivating you and driving you, then often we'll just be acting from emotional reactions and from unconscious places and not sure why we're acting certain ways. The more you understand the nature of your personality, the more you understand why you're acting the way you do, what's driving and motivating that behavior, and how to nurture your best version of yourself. So there's lots of different personality assessments out there. Myers-Briggs, color code, Enneagram. You guys heard of any others that you've used?
Did you already say Carol Tuttle's?
Carol Tuttle energy profiling. You guys familiar with any of these? So a lot of them are helpful, and I think even having the basis of any understanding of different personality systems is helpful. And the difference with this is that in comparison, many of those feel very incomplete. And sometimes they're biased because all you have is a personality test or a guess at what type you might be. And so, that it helps you look inside and try to discover who you are, but it's kind of just a personal assessment versus an actual objective way of viewing who you are. So this is an example of the color code test. So they'll give you an X, or all these questions, and you put an X by which one you relate to the most. And I always had a hard time with that because I'm like, well, I'm several of these. And so they'll have your family members help you out, but still I always had a hard time just honing in on one type. Plus they also are giving you a list of positive characteristics and negative characteristics, and they say that you're both of these. And so that was kind of frustrating too. I felt kind of boxed in. I didn't really like my type that came up. and then also as I grew up and took the tests over and over later again, I felt like I changed. And so it wasn't just a set understanding of who I was, but it would vary according to how I was feeling, and who I was becoming at any time of life.
I'm sorry for my cough. It's just an old lingering cough, so I'm not contagious
Very good.
that I know of. And I'm not concerned. Okay. It's so bad because your recording is going to have some coughing in.
You're fine. So even with astrology, most people are only aware of their sun signs. And even though there's a lot of truth in the sun sign, how can you fit everyone in the world into one of 12 signs? I mean, it's the same as color code trying to fit everyone into one of 4 types. There is something to types being in categories of 4 or 12, but as far as really describing in detail the differences from one person to the next, it's still very limited. And so there's a lot of factors in the birth chart that can affect how well you're expressing your sun sign. And so maybe you're not expressing it very well, maybe it's hidden, maybe it's undeveloped, and so you feel more like one of your other signs than you do like your sun sign, and so then you don't really relate to just the sun sign astrology. So, and some people really do, and so you believe in it more. But anyway, it's good, but it's limited. So it wasn't until I discovered the full birth chart that I finally understood myself thoroughly for the first time. And my journey started with this book called The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need, which is not true. It's got basically everything you could learn about astrology, but not how to interpret charts. It still interprets everything for you. Okay. So I was able to pull up a birth chart and see where all the planets were in what signs and houses. And I felt like it touched on all aspects of my personality. The thing I hated about this was that a lot of the interpretations would give like hidden little horrible statements like may suffer the loss of a loved one early in life, or like possible divorce, or just like all these little horrible statements in the middle of a beautiful description of personality. And so I'm like, I don't want to read anybody this, like scare them that because of their birth chart, they're going to experience some horrible circumstance in their life. So I like had a love-hate relationship with this book. And I was just like, I know there's truth to this, and I want to get to the bottom of it, and what is the real truth and the real way. And so I just kind of said a prayer and was like, I just want to find the true form of this. Help me find it. And really that night, I woke up in the middle of the night and it felt like this light bulb went on, and it was just like, spiritual astrology, look for spiritual astrology. Okay, and it seemed like something I hadn't thought of before. And the next morning, I walked into my mom's office, and on her bookshelf was this book. My mom is not into astrology, and so I was really like, why does she have this book? and it was actually a different cover. This is a newer version. But on the book it said, an evolutionary approach to astrology, like from a spiritual standpoint. It basically described everything that I felt like I had been told to look for. I read the book like in just a couple days and felt like I found the answer and understood myself with clarity, got rid of those horrible little things that were interrupting the descriptions of the signs and houses, and just taught me how to do it on my own. And from there, I studied a lot of other books and found pieces of truth in all of them. Well, in several of them, not all of them. Others that I couldn't stand. But the ones I found, were just really speaking true principles to me. So I decided to pull them all together and create a class that helps you understand what I took a lot of time searching for, so that you just have a really principle-based approach without all of the fluff stuff, without the negative predictions, without the misleading statements. And it's really beautiful, and all the charts I've done for people, whether I know them or not, people have been really enlightened and feel like they're more validated and understand themselves better.
Yes.
So it works. If you have a system that follows just true principles, then it's going to work every time. And so this will work for you and for people you don't know if you're doing charts for them. It will work for your friends, work for your relationships, and just bring enlightenment to you. And the cool thing is that a birth chart is not just this set in stone thing. It's really a living thing. I'm constantly learning from it. And so every time I think about my birth chart, I feel like at a new phase of my life that's relating to me in a new way. And so it just kind of, it grows with you. And it can be interpreted in just every different way that you're expressing it, because it is a very living thing. So, on that note, so with this system, we've got 12 signs. So there's really 10 planets, but there's 14 things we count as planets in 12 houses. And so we've got all these different combinations of birth charts. And it's thousands of years before birth charts ever duplicated again. So it's very unique and individualized. It changes from minute to minute. So even twins are born with different birth charts because the house placement changes from minute to minute. So they're similar, but they're going to be different enough. So this is a very, very individualized thing for you. And it really helps the more close and exact you get to knowing your birth time, because that does put everything in its perfect place. Okay, let's look for a minute at what a birth chart doesn't do. So I want to kind of dispel some myths. So a birth chart, it doesn't show your life set in stone, and that's what I was saying earlier. And this is actually in your notes. If you don't want to write all these down, there's a page in your notes for that, but you're welcome to also take notes. So it's a living thing. It's changing with your life. I mean, the chart doesn't change, but as you change, you see it differently. So it doesn't predict the future, tell you what experiences you're going to have in your life. It doesn't tell you who you are. It tells you, well, we'll get into what it does tell you. It doesn't tell you how you live your life. This is not something that you're boxed into, restricted by. It doesn't limit you. It doesn't take away from your inherent personality. There is still a you, even if you did have the exact birth chart as someone else, you guys will still be expressing it differently in your own way. It doesn't take away your agency. You're free to act within your birth chart however you choose. It doesn't tell you that you're one way and you can't change. It doesn't take the place of your God or higher power. It works within the framework of whatever belief system you have. So what it can do is shows the energies that have been influencing you since birth. So you can look at it similar to you were born with certain genetics. You were born and grew up in a certain household environment. This is another one of those environments, an energy-based environment that you grew up in and were influenced by. It assists you in more fully discovering yourself. It acts as a mirror and gives form to things that you've already really felt about yourself and makes it more clear. He's going to be on my video too. It shows possible motivations behind your feelings and your actions and all of your inner yearnings. Points out potential areas of growth and development. And shows how harmonious you may be with yourself, or how in conflict you might feel with yourself, as far as, do you ever feel like you're kind of two different ways, two different people at times, and have kind of different motivations at different times? Some people feel more harmonious with themselves, and some people feel like they're kind of two different people all the time, fighting against themselves. So this will be able to give form to that thing you're already feeling. Points out possible reasons for frustrations or unfulfillment in your life, and give you some ideas for activities that can help you fulfill those needs you have. Points out potential areas of strengths and potential weaknesses. It doesn't show you all these negative qualities and all these positive qualities. It's saying you have the potential to react either way to this energy. Shows what realms of experience in life you're most attuned to, and this is something we're going to go into more detail later today. So are you more attuned to the world of action, to the mental world, to the emotions, or the more physical material world? And show where there's imbalances. Shows basic instincts and unconscious drives, and gives you the opportunity to move from unconscious action to conscious action, like we talked about. Can show why you connect better with some people and understand some people better than others. Helps you be able to understand other people easier, and have more tolerance for other people. And it does allow for growth outside of your birth chart. And also assists the client-counselor relationship if you happen to be a counselor, or even helps you with your friend relationships, helping to counsel them if you understand their chart. Any questions about these? So, can do a lot of things. Okay, so this is the basic wheel of a birth chart. So what you're looking at is the sky from the point of view of Earth. And this line across the center is the horizon line. So the difference is you can actually see the planets or the sky below the horizon line and above the horizon line. So it's like you're cutting the Earth, well, it's like you're kind of standing outside the Earth, but on the Earth. So maybe like Earth's right in the middle here. It's the horizon line, but you're able to see the sky down here below the horizon and above the horizon.
What is the horizon?
So that's where the sun sets or rises.
Oh, okay.
So just that plane of the Earth, as far as you can see, where the sun rises and sets.
Okay.
Someone else describe it better for me.
Is it like 3D, like this coming out at us is the sky, and we're below it, like underneath it, looking up at the sky?
No.
So are you saying we wouldn't be able to really see all the stars because they're down there?
Like right now, we can see certain constellations at night, but we can't see others because they're below us.
Oh yeah.
Because we're
This is like you've got an X-ray machine below the Earth.
360 view. Is that what?
I think so.
So if you had an X-ray machine and you could see through the Earth, and you could see the other constellations that were down there that we can't see right now until they spin up this way.
But other parts of the, like across from us in India, they could see those parts, and we can see the parts we see. That makes sense.
Yeah, so this is the entire sky. So if we were outside, we could see like the top half.
Yeah. So this is like the ground, and if we go outside, everything that we can see is going to be up here.
From where we're at.
Yeah. But the chart still shows what we can't see beneath our feet, beneath the earth.
So is that our shadows?
It does mean something. We'll talk about it later. But what this does show is, say, where the sun rises. So this is the east horizon where the sun rises. This is called the ascendant point, where things ascend. This point would be, it's called midheaven, but it's where the sun would be at noon. This is where the sun is setting, and this is where the sun would be at midnight. There are also names for these 2 points. We don't use them as much right now, but this point's called the descendant, so ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and nadir. And then these pie slices are basically just cutting the sky up into 12 different sections. And we label them 1 to 12 in a counterclockwise way.
Is it okay to learn Eastern and Western astrology?
You mean Vedic?
Yeah, Vedic.
So it would be a little confusing, but it's fine.
Because they're like opposites or something?
I think Vedic is more based on actual positions in the sky, because there is a wobble of the earth that's kind of shifted the placement of the zodiac signs over the years. But we still use the old system in Western astrology, and I'll tell you why later. But Vedic is trying to follow the changes that are happening in the sky.
That's Eastern.
So that changes where all your planets actually fall. But that would also have to change the meaning of the planets. So,
That would be confusing.
yeah. So, yeah. It's basically called the progression of the equinoxes, that because there's a wobble in the Earth's axis, the ecliptic where the zodiac belt is constantly shifting a little at a time. So, but the way that this system is based on is from our point of view from Earth, based around the seasons. And so Aries begins spring because of the energy of spring that time of year. And so it used to be Aries in the sky at that time. Now it's more like Taurus, but it's still the energy of Aries, so we call it Aries still. So Vedic would just be like changing where the position of all your planets are, and you would get a little confused.
But like the energy of the planet then would change, or the constellation, right?
It's more that the stars reflect what's going on the Earth versus causing it.
Okay. Interesting.
So this is just a birth chart wheel kind of showing that that's the horizon line, that picture. Like at the ocean where the sun rises, so that lines up with this line.
There's an ocean in the background.
That's the horizon line. Okay, so learning birth charts and how to analyze them is like learning a language, learning a new language. And so this is like our alphabet. So you need to be able to learn the letters of the alphabet in order to be able to form words and then sentences. So these are the symbols you need to know. Are you familiar with these symbols, or are they new to you?
Some are new.
Yeah. I think I know a couple I recognize.
Yeah. Some are obvious, and then Mars and Venus tend to be pretty commonly seen when you talk about men and women. There are two symbols for Pluto.
Why?
Just in different birth charts that you generate, they'll show up one way or another. The one we'll use more is the P, but
Okay.
you'll see them both. I'll show you two different chart wheels and I'll have both of them. So it is easier to learn the P for Pluto though. And then these two horseshoes are called the south node and north nodes of the moon. I'll discuss what that is later on. This right here is an asteroid called Chiron. And they're starting to bring asteroids in more with the planets because they're finding the meanings of them out. This is one that just pops up in the birth charts that we generate. And so people were constantly asking me, what is that symbol? What does it mean? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to go and really learn about this asteroid and teach it now. It's in your chart, so people want to know about it. It is a significant planet, or asteroid. Sometimes the smaller bodies actually are really potent and powerful, like Pluto and Chiron.
How do they find out the energies?
Watching it. They just observe what's going on the Earth when it's discovered. They observe people and they observe birth charts. I mean, this has been a process of hundreds of thousands of years of observation.
Oh, crazy.
So
It'll take a lot of work.
grateful for those who've gone before us and figured these things out.
Yeah.
So then we've got our signs. These are more familiar to some people. At least those who like to look up horoscopes. And all the planets and signs fall in the backdrop of the chart wheel that we showed you earlier. Once again, this eastern horizon point is the ascendant. So when we talk about the ascendant, that's how you're going to figure out what it is. It would be Cancer right here.
Is that always
So,
Cancer right
no,
now?
it's whatever sign is on the horizon line right there.
When you're born?
That's why time is so important. Going back to that earlier chart that has the northeast, southwest. So, I don't know if you noticed, north was down here, and south was up there, and west over there, so it's kind of like upside down compass. The reason for the south being up there is because we're in the northern hemisphere, so our sun is always in the southern sky. So if you look outside, most people don't really pay attention to that, but especially in the winter, the sun is way in the southern sky. And it never ever goes straight above us. It never goes into our northern sky, which is actually, okay, so it never actually goes into the northern sky. It stays right above us or the southern sky. And so that's because we're above the equator.
In Utah?
In the United States, above the equator, everyone above the equator, the sun stays in the lower half of the sky because it's perfectly above the sky at the equator. If we lived in the southern hemisphere, it'd be the opposite. So it'd always be in the northern sky because the equator is above.
So that chart is different, the east and south?
No, it's just the way we put the east and the west and the north and the south. But it's not a big deal other than just understanding why it is that way.
But that's the east, the...
East, south, west, north.
Okay, so it's still the same.
It's a little confusing because this is above the earth, but it's south. It's just the southern sky because of our hemisphere that we're in. But don't stress about it too much.
Okay.
It's just understanding why that's on there that way. So anyway, the planets fall in signs and houses. So like Jupiter is falling in the sign of Leo in the first house. So that's how that's configured with this chart. Okay, so I'm going to give you, watch a couple little videos. These are really old school videos, but they explain how a birth chart is created or how they figured out how to do a birth chart really well. So.
Hello, I'm John Stevens. Welcome to lesson number 1 in our astrological learning series. In this lesson, we're going to learn the rationale behind astrology that makes the whole system work. As a teacher, I found that once a student gets a grasp of astrology at its most fundamental level, then everything else falls into place. Here is a representation of our solar system that is familiar to most of us. you will notice that all the planets revolve around the Sun in the same direction. That is, they all move from left to right when passing in front of the Sun, and from right to left when traveling behind it. The reason for this goes back to the origins of our solar system. Each star system starts out as a swirling mass of gases and dust particles, which eventually coalesce into a central sun, several planets with their moons, and various other orbiting bodies such as comets and asteroids. The direction of orbit is the same for all bodies within a system because they all come from the same original rotating mass. Even our own moon follows the same direction of orbit as the other planets. Now, if we were to take this view of our solar system and turn it up on end, so to speak, we would place ourselves at a vantage point above the solar system looking down at the north poles of all the planets. For the purposes of this demonstration, we will confine ourselves to the 4 planets closest to the Sun. From this vantage point, you can begin to see where astrologers got the idea of an astrological chart wheel. A chart wheel is, in fact, a snapshot of our solar system taken at a precise moment in time. Over the millennia, astrologers have developed a system whereby the heavens are divided into 12 equal segments known as astrological signs. The name of the astrological sign corresponds to the predominant constellation that is located in each of the segments. We know these signs as Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. It is easy to see that each of the planets at any given moment occupies one of the signs of the zodiac. In our example, for instance, Mercury is in the sign Gemini, Mars is in Libra, and Venus is on the borderline between Capricorn and Aquarius. This type of chart is called a heliocentric or sun-centered chart. While it is used by astrologers for some things, it is not the type of chart normally used in personal horoscopes. For individual chart interpretation, astrologers use a geocentric or earth-centered chart. The modification for a geocentric chart is to simply put the Earth at the center of the chart wheel. This practice is based on the belief that if you want to examine a person, place, or thing, it must become the center point for all available influences. You can see that in a geocentric chart, all of the planets and the Sun appear to revolve around the Earth. In this system, the Sun is no longer at the center, but actually is put in a position where it occupies a zodiac sign just like the other planets. So in our example, both the Moon and Venus are in the sign Leo. The Sun is in Virgo, Mercury is in the sign Libra, and Mars is just entering into the sign Aquarius. So when you hear someone say, "My sun sign is Libra," or "My moon is in Gemini," it is this geocentric point of view to which they are referring. The geocentric or Earth-centered chart is the chart widely used by astrologers in personal horoscopes and chart consultations. By placing the Earth at the center of the chart, astrologers can accurately assess what influences an individual might be experiencing. In the next lesson, we will show how astrologers make an even further modification by taking into account a person's geographic location on the Earth. I'm John Stevens, and thanks for watching.
Any questions about that?
Hello, I'm John Stevens, and welcome to lesson number 2 in our astrological learning series. In lesson number 1, we learned how an astrological chart is actually a representation of our solar system at any given moment in time, and also how the Earth is placed at the center of the chart. Now we're going to learn about houses and how they add to a chart's overall meaning. Houses act as a framework which help define the individual nature of each chart. Houses are vital to chart analysis, contributing about 50% to a chart's meaning. In this view of the heavens, we are looking down at the north pole of the Earth as it rotates within the context of the zodiac signs. You can see that the zodiac signs constitute a relatively fixed backdrop through which all orbiting bodies move. Early astrologers recognized that a person's geographic location on the Earth must be taken into account. To do this, they devised a system of houses. According to the house system, the point in the heavens directly above an individual is known as the midheaven, indicated by the letters MC from the Latin medium caeli, meaning middle of the heavens. The point at the eastern horizon is called the ascendant, because it is the point which is rising or ascending from the horizon as the Earth turns. From these 2 points are extrapolated the rest of the houses, numbering 1 through 12. Just as there are 12 zodiac signs, there are also 12 houses. The meanings contained in the houses are very similar to those contained in the zodiac signs. The first zodiac sign, Aries, for instance, conveys individuality, originality, self-awareness, and boldness. The first house conveys approximately the same meanings. The second house corresponds to the second zodiac sign, Taurus, conveying security consciousness, adherence to a value system, and a craving for stability. The third house corresponds to the third zodiac sign, Gemini, which imparts communication skills, talkativeness, and adaptability. The pattern continues through the rest of the signs and houses. The main difference between houses and signs is that houses move with the Earth while the zodiac signs do not. As the Earth rotates on its axis, it changes the position of the houses in relation to the zodiac signs underneath. The houses can be thought of as a personalized version of the zodiac, which is superimposed over the actual zodiac. The 2 systems overlap one another, creating an ever-changing kaleidoscope of endless combinations. Houses bring a personalized dimension to the birth chart, making each chart totally unique. The placement of the houses depends on the time of day an event occurs. If this were a natal chart, for example, we would take a freeze frame of the heavens at the time of birth. In our example, this individual's midheaven is Sagittarius and the ascendant is Pisces. Because a chart can occur at any point in a 24-hour period, a house will often include portions of 2 zodiac signs. This individual's 11th house, for example, contains a portion of the sign Capricorn and a portion of the sign Aquarius. You can see from the previous illustration that the position of the houses in one's natal chart can change dramatically based on the time of day a person is born. A difference of 1 hour, for example, would cause the Earth to rotate about 15 degrees or half of one zodiac sign. This time interval could make a big difference in the overall layout of one's birth chart. This is why astrologers, when setting up a natal chart, are always very insistent on using the correct time of birth. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion of houses. I'm John Stevens, and thanks for watching.
Any questions about that? Starla?
It's kind of confusing to me. Is it to you?
It's because there's a lot.
Well, I was wondering, so with the houses, as they move around when the Earth rotates, I'm still,
Okay.
I guess I'm confused, like, so as I age, wouldn't my house move into a different
No.
area?
Wherever it was when you were born, we get a freeze frame of that moment only.
And that's
the
just
houses
your
are-
imprint,
Yeah.
basically, that's who you are, and it doesn't change?
Right.
That's
So you can interpret things in that chart differently as you grow.
Right.
But the chart itself doesn't change.
Okay.
So a chart, are you familiar with like, what, this is what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Like the chart, and so I guess these charts are a freeze frame of where everything was right when we were born, like where the planet was, where the
It's like you were given a fingerprint,
Okay.
and that's with you.
Okay. That's cool.
And so notice that when the Earth was spinning with the houses, even though the signs are a fixed backdrop of the sky, from the person on Earth's point of view, the houses are fixed and the sky looks like it's changing. Does that make sense?
Where are the houses at? Like, how do they decide where?
So, yeah, that's another thing that's too complicated to
Okay.
really figure out. I mean, I figured it out when I was doing it from this book, but it wasn't even exact compared to the websites and how they do it. It's very just a mathematical thing.
Oh,
So, it's based partly on where the sun's highest point is at the season and time you're born. So the house placement will change depending on the season, because at certain seasons the sun's staying in the southern sky. That'll change where midheaven is. That'll stretch some of the houses and shrink some of the others. So, yeah, they just, yeah, it's
But is
very,
your birth chart the same on every website you go to? Do they calculate it all? Calculate it all the
it's
same?
the same, but we'll show you certain websites don't actually change the houses like they should, but they'll switch the signs in. I don't know, they'll make up for it, but they don't show the actual size of the houses like they should. Just to make it easier for you to see the houses cut perfectly even.